And we are back. We are back with the Raging Loop. Um, and since we are back, um, we're going to see what happened. We're going to see what the bad sign was. We're going to see why the door was unlocked. We're going to see what happens the next day after the second feast thing goes on. And 4 people went missing, they died. We're going to go and find out. So let's continue. It was Konzo place all over again. Mom should be sleeping upstairs. With that knowledge, I opened the door. What if she was attacked? Even if she wasn't, considering her state yesterday, it was unlikely she did something unthinkable such as suicide. However, I soon found out my worries were for nothing. Kori-san was standing all alone in the dark dining hall wearing an apron. The fact that she wasn't doing anything but standing was just eerie. She turned around and greeted us. Her voice was the only thing calm about her. Her eyes were bloodshot and signs of malnourishment were all across her face. Her faint, forced smile made her seem on the verge of collapse. She completely failed at acting normal. Her heart was probably swirling with panic, sorrow, as great as yesterday. Everyone here could see it. Mom, everyone's hungry. I'll make food so you just rest.
いいのに。あ、私もやります。これでも自炊はそれなりにしてましたから。
After they volunteered to support Kori-san, I thought about what purpose I could serve here. Let's go. And called to Haru-chan before going outside. She came with me, but she wasn't saying a word. During yesterday's feast, she had a fight with Kori-san. The woman had voted for Haru-chan due to the change in her attitude and failed escape attempt. I couldn't blame her for that. Considering her personality, I imagined that the exchange had been extremely intense. That was why getting her out of the dining hall was a good move. Problem was, we didn't really have anything to talk about. This was made worse by the hostility she'd shown until just recently. According to Mochi, that was a product of her affection towards Yasunaga-kun and all the drama surrounding him. Normally, I'd playfully give her a hard time about that kind of thing, but it seemed to be a poor taste considering the situation. She was staring daggers at me. Maybe if I had to ask her, Haru-chan?
何ですか?
I'll be frank, are you a wolf?
違うわよ。
She didn't hesitate at all, not like that meant anything.
何よ、納得いかないの? じゃあ、匠兄に調べてもらうわよ。それではっきりするでしょ?
Are you saying that despite knowing
は? 何を?
if he were alive, he'd be the one looking at the Kori-san in the dining hall? Yesterday we went there first thing in the morning with Kori-san in her current state. That was all the more reason for him to be there, but now he's missing.
嘘でしょ。そんなこと。
We'll go check to be sure. Lead the way.
わかった。タエバー、起きてる?
Haru knocked on the door and tried to open it, but it was locked, meaning it wasn't touched. Tae-san came out sooner than later. She looked pretty pleasant to begin with, but upon seeing me, she displayed outright disgust. Sorry, Kori-san isn't well, and we needed more people. We're going to check on him. Her gloomy expression told me she'd realized what might have happened. She said she had to prepare, and so we excused ourselves. Please ask if you need anything. She shut the door on us.
女なら誰にでも優しいんですね。
What the hell was she saying? Being considerate of elders and women is a gentlemanly thing to do.
知恵姉もそうなの？
I like her quite a lot.
やめてよ。兄ちゃんがかわいそう。
Nichan? Oh, Yasunaga-kun. Surely. What do you mean by that?
よし君ももっちも死んじゃって、兄ちゃんには香織さんと知恵姉しかいないのよ。それに知恵姉は私らの中で一番強くて、上藤吉のやつらや大人たちからいつも私らを守ってくれた。私らから知恵姉を取らないでよ。
So that's how it was. I wasn't sure how she actually felt about Chimi, but there was definitely more trust and reliance than I expected. Yasunaga spoke like he'd given up on Chimi, but deep down he was actually glad she had returned. Haru-chan was aware of that. She actually liked Chimi. That's why she concluded that they should be together. However, it was clear that she didn't feel like giving them her blessing. Understand how you feel. The end result depends on Chimi, and since she hated Yasumizu, I felt like it wouldn't be something Haru would want. Then again, I really didn't know what was going on in Chimi's head either, and I had no idea who'd survive, so making predictions was a waste of time. For now, everyone should focus on ending the feast. I don't think I can do much, but if there's something you don't want to tell your own, I'm willing to listen.
何それ？
Nothing much. It just feels like you have a lot to worry about. And personally, I still think that escaping outside is a good idea.
それは無理よ。
Didn't you try it yourself?
でも逃げられなかったじゃない。だから分かった。
Isn't that because you just happened to hurt your foot?
たまたまなんかじゃない。
Do you believe in God too?
何を聞いた？そんなものいない。そう考えなきゃやってられない。
There was a weird aura around her for a second, but then she walked away, leaving me no choice but to follow her. We arrived at the houses. The mysterious girl was on the verge of crying. Good morning. What's wrong?
はっきり喋りなさいよ。喋れるでしょ、あんた。
Come on, be more mature. Repeat after me. Good morning. This was helpless. Haru-chan glared at her while I stayed patient. Where's Rikako?
お姉ちゃん
Yeah, where is she?
出てこない。
ここよ、あいつの家。
It really was. I had been here since yesterday. I knocked and called out for her. There was no response. Haru and I looked at each other and tried opening the door. It was locked. Rikako? Still no response. I hesitantly put my ear against the door. I heard some sort of rustling sound. It's probably getting dressed.
じゃあやっぱり。
We don't know for sure. It still could be Kiyonosuke. What about me? Well, I did expect him to live. Is Reikako-san well? Well, she's all you care about, isn't she? Yes, she does seem to be alright. She's not out yet. I wonder what's up. What a bad feeling about something. Good to see it was nothing. Does this mean that the one to die was Lady Yamaki?
タイバーは
Taiba was alive. What? Why was he so positive? Haru-chan? Take Meiko to the dining hall. Kiyonosuke, help me out. He tried to say something, but decided against it. He must have realized what happened to the one who'd usually be given these annoying jobs. As expected, the door to his house was unlocked. The reek of was so strong you could smell it outside. I thought that was enough to help me prepare. But once I saw the source, I couldn't keep down what contents my stomach had left. The two from the first day, Konzo and Yoshitsugi Orobi, they all resembled a form to the point they felt unrealistic. On the other hand, Chika Mochi's and the old wolf guy's courts were far too clean. However, Tamaki Moro was an even balance between ruined and intact. It was spread out on the in surrounded by splashes, as well as some bloody footprints. Scattered brain, gray matter, bone fractures, eyes. About 60% of his face was gone. This time, the method was clear. There was a rifle laying right next to his. The weapon was actually the scene on the scene for once, and it was a gun. What did it mean? I wanted to talk about it, but it was also too shaken by the clear agony. You could see his suffering on still present half of his face. His hands were on his head too, as if it was covered. Reach for blah blah, fatal wound. He died while holding on to his shattered brain. Though fatal, the first attack hadn't killed him instantly. He still could move after, which was a testament of his strength and willpower. His strength had ended as he suffered overwhelming despair. It was written all too clearly on his death. My emotion bubbled and overwhelmed my thoughts. I had vomited once again. Are you okay? Kiyonosuke asked, clearly avoiding looking at it himself. Bring me someone who can use guns, please. I never expected you to come along. Her expression was too stern and serious for me to even say. She cursed and looked at the gun. She grasped it, its long body, and picked it up. I'll look around. I found them real quick. They were covered. But yeah, I found the metallic cylinders. They were 2 meters away from them, very close to one another, and gathered them afterwards. Chimi extended the rifle to me. I did as told. Compared to the rest of the gun, which had been blood on every part, the handle was clean. They removed the fingerprints. Chimi then held it like it was about to shoot and aimed at Tamaki's. How can you tell?
あっちに向かって勢いよく飛んでるでしょ。かなり、それに普通のライフルはかなり至近距離でもないとこういう風にめちゃめちゃな傷にはならない。かといって銃口を押し付けて撃ったらいろんなものが跳ね返って銃口がもっと汚れてるはず。
That's why it was unusual to think it had been fired from where she was standing near the cartridge. Can you actually aim and hit something with
ちゃん
this?
と狙い方を知っていることと対象が動いていないこと。
So this was done by someone who knows how to use guns.
ちなみに小銃から小生を除くそれだけ。銃って誰でも簡単に人を殺せる便利な道具なんだよ。
What about loading? That doesn't seem like something a layman can do, is it?
それはそうかもね。でもタイバーちゃんあたりなら撃ったことあるだろうし、休みずないで選別は無理かな。
This was a settlement where the people went hunting. Basically, everyone here must have touched rifles before. All we could really assume was that Meiko couldn't have done this.
そもそも全弾命中してるわけじゃない。どうやら
1発は耳に、2発は胸と肩に。あ、ここにも弾痕。
She pointed a small part of the floor that was ruined. She only hit, so only one hit to the head.
そうだね。もしかしたらそれは致命傷じゃなくて、胸の一発がとどめだったのかも。
She looked at the body's pose and made the same conclusion as me. Why do you know so much about guns anyways?
私も狩猟免許持ってる。銃も罠も網も全部使える。外ではクレー射撃何度も行ったし、それなりに慣れてるよ。
Well, didn't expect that.
まあね。
Did you plan to return here and become a hunter?
銃を持ちたかった。それだけ。
She said that as if it wasn't no big deal. Her tone seemed kind of dangerous. Yes, so much that she almost killed someone.
中学の時かな。安水の子らをいじめてた分校の上級生らをバットでボッコボッコ。
It was the impression you get from a girl capable of random acts of violence. I was probably jumping to conclusions, though. Can we clean it up now?
春明さんがいいなら。
Let's do it then.
何か分かった？
I am now 100% certain that these murders were committed by people. The culprit used a gun and wiped off the fingerprints, acted that demonstrated a very human level cunning. If we were up against something supernatural, we just see their mysterious powers instead. If something mysterious can be explained using mundane means, then it was caused by mundane means. There was a general rule I lived by, proven through both knowledge and first-hand experience. Supernatural powers that required carrying out occult rituals were a prime example of things it applied. The more detailed the preparation required, the more opportunities to notice something amiss. If the trick relied on concealing the method, it was safe to assume the method was something mundane. Even this death wasn't caused by some kind of supernatural force. It just happened to be unobserved. We had people who could have done it, and the methods that fit. That was the best way to look at it, right?
そうかもね。
You agree?
多分殺してるのは私の知ってる誰かと誰か。
But that didn't go against her whole story. I wanted to ask that, but see her eyes made me fall silent. Her eyes were wide and cloudy.
でもね。
Her lips let out clear words. I looked away. I probably wanted to cover my ears too.
誰も逃げられないんだよね。
I asked Jamie to call Kiranosuke to help carry the corpse, but she insisted on doing it herself. I caved and we began the unpleasant task. Following Takumi-san's example, I removed the door and placed his body on it. Chimi and I each took an end of the door and lifted it up. He was heavy as he looked, and I wouldn't have been surprised if this was too much for even two men. However, Chimi lifted her side without letting out a single grunt of exertion. It felt like an active rejection of the idea that she might need help. We slowly began walking. Kiyonosuke was outside. He was anxious about something. It didn't look like he was waiting for us, so maybe Rikako hadn't came out yet. I couldn't afford to stop and chat. Relaxing my arms and lowered my body could lead to me dropping. I kept walking forward without a single word. Sighing and stopping was our sign that one of us needed rest. Every time one of us did it, we lowered him to the ground, rubbed our aching hands, adjusted our grip, and resumed walking. As we approached the cliff, Chimi's expression grew
匠
darker.
兄ちゃんは安水で一番年の近いお兄ちゃんだったから。
I wasn't gonna ask how that mattered. I didn't see a point in questioning it. I simply nodded and continued to play the role of
昔は
audience.
いっぱい遊んでくれたし、怒られた時はかばってくれた。こんな何もない湿っぽい場所だけど、匠兄ちゃんは安水を
Yeah, I could
まっ
tell.
すぐな人だった。
Yeah.
捨てたくないよ。
Of course you don't. I don't like this either. Should we stop? The only ones who'd really care about this are Takumi-san himself and Tei-san, right?
しなきゃダメ。
Because of the corruption? I continued asking if she was sure, but she didn't change her mind, so we ended up throwing his body into Saranaga. We walked her through the grave and careful not to trip, we could now see the hanging pine through the mist. We carefully closed in on the cliff and pushed the door towards it.
さよなら、匠兄ちゃん。
She said that right as I felt the body slide off. It was all falling. I'd done this several times now, but it still made me feel empty. It would eventually hit the water and make a splash. Huh? Did you hear the water?
さあ、
Did we both miss it somehow?
あるいは皿長の底が抜けて黄泉の国につながってるのかも。
You got quite the imagination.
霧の向こうに何があるか誰も知らない。
Should I go down and take a look?
あなたは帰ってこない。
That was how she saw the world. Let's go back. We returned to do another investigation of Tamaki's house, but something strange happened while we were gone. Kiyonosuke was still in the same spot in front of Rikako Umatsu's house, waiting for her without even trying to hide his frustration. She still hasn't come out. No, you're the only one who said she seemed all right. What made you think that? I heard some sounds.
待ってる間にあなた自身で呼んでみればよかったんじゃないですか。
As if I could do something so rude.
なんでそんなにリカ子さんにだけ気を使ってるんです？野里は植松より格上でしょうに。
That was an interesting bit of information. I hadn't realized that the head families had higher anarchy. It only occurred to be natural to be considerate of women.
私も女性なんですけど。
I don't see a reason to be considerate of someone so hostile towards me, do you? Please stop. We just finished putting a body to rest. That's probably one of the reasons why they were so agitated, but my comment was enough to shut them up. Though yes, I am worried too. She might need help if she's sick or injured. We may have no choice but to barge in. How improper. Was he the type to report someone who undressed to give her proper first aid? What was up with this guy's priorities? Rikako. I bashed the door almost violently. I heard the sound of rustling clothes. Had she collapsed or something? Umatsu-san? I'm opening the door. No answer again, only sounds. Is it really her in there? Let's break it down. Chimi nodded. While Kiyonosuke gave a disgruntled sigh. The door was made from thin plywood and a wooden frame. A solid impact would break through. I looked around and saw a few aged farming tools lying against some houses. The old wooden hoe and mallet were too rotten to work here. But the axe looked just right. 1, 2, I lifted the axe and started counting, but had to stop midway. There was a sound of clutter. The door suddenly moved. Suddenly, I jumped backwards and glanced at the two. They were just as shocked as, if not frightened.
何？
What do you mean? It had been... There was no response at first, but a few seconds later the door shook again. A moment later, it fell silent once more. Had she collapsed on the door? If she wasn't well and was lying next to the door, breaking it was dangerous. I put the axe down and walked up to the door again. The moment I approached it, I heard a clicking sound. It didn't even have time to question what happened before it cracked open. There was a gap about 20 centimeters. It was pitch black inside. There was a face all covered. It sunk back into the darkness the very next moment, but it was soon replaced by an inhuman scream and an arm that snaked out and grabbed for my neck. The grasp had inhuman strength behind it. I ignored Chimi and Kiyonosuke's scream and tried to pry it myself free. My throat was on the verge of crushing. The groans continued seamlessly. The nails dug into my neck and I began to be drugged out. Help! Why was she so strong? The arm clearly belonged to Rikako Amatsu, so why? Help me. My words got them out of their spirit and they ran up to me. As panic and lack of oxygen, my vision, they grabbed, bashed, and tugged the arm that was holding onto me. Just one finger. I don't know how long it took, but when I was eventually free, Chimi swiftly slammed the door shut. Like what? Sitting on the ground in shock, I simply stared at their exchange. I could still barely breathe. My vision was hazy and I couldn't think properly. Something inside was trying to get the door open and possibly escape. What it was, though, I had no idea. What happened to Riko?
野里さん、ここ押さえといて。みんな連れてきて戸を塞ぐから。春明さん大丈夫？立てる？
Yeah. Actions were more important than words here. Setting my resolve, I rose to my feet. We gathered everyone who could still move and sealed off Rikako's door and windows with planks, nails, large farming tools, and whatever else we could find. The small house was basically a pile of flimsy barricades now, and everyone was tired from all the work and sat down to rest. What's the point of doing this, though? Someone asked. We could still hear groans and crashing sounds from the inside. No one answered the question, but we all understood that letting that thing out would be a mistake. But what exactly was it, anyways? That seemed to be like an answer of some sort, anyways.
どういうこと？
読み字より来たる汚れた者ども。
いや、そうじゃなくて、読み人は狼でしょ。宴で殺された恨みで蘇った。
そうとは限らんのよ、春ちゃん。安水は常にあるいは汚れは読み人を生んだのかもしれぬ。
That can't be law. Protecting the laws is the role of the purifying spider family.
じゃからこそ汚れに触れすぎたのかもしれぬでしょう。
But that's...
思えば安水に来られたのは黄泉の汚れを少しでも食い止めんとされたのかもしれませんね。これからどれだけ読み人が出るやら知れたもんじゃないわ。匠はええ子じゃった。ナムシない大権現、ナムシない大権現。
A silent prayer, her eyes were teary and her shoulders were shaking. Wait, then Rikako is...
読み人はくくらねばならん。
That didn't sit right with me. The rule was that breaking the law meant getting the corruption, and getting the corruption meant being slaughtered, right? It was the first time I had heard that it was possible to do something about the corruption and that she died because of that. Logic had little ground here, so the people were gradually losing their minds. they were being pushed closer to death. It was like this was a supernatural phenomenon.
皆さん食事にしませんか？私はもう落ち着きましたから。他のことは皆さんが落ち着いてから。
As we turned away and returned to the dining hall, I felt like Rikako Amatsu let out a groan even more inhumanly loud than any of those before. Once we arrived, the place was dominated by a heavy silence. There were sounds coming from the kitchen. A kitchen knife rhythmically hit the cutting board as Kori-san prepared the food. Tae-san was seated away from everyone, desperately yet chanting a Sinatra. Combined with the with the kitchen sounds, it had a mind-numbing effect. Everyone else was simply falling into a torpor, staring silently into space. Even I, the sanest person in the room, wanted to simply let my mind shut down and stop thinking. That wouldn't stop me from trying, though. Rather than trying to evaluate the details, I decided to return to square one and summarize the situation. That left me Chimi, the two Orobi, Kiyonosuke, Tei, Meiko, Riko, and Haru, a total of 9. I didn't want to say she had become a Yami Beto or something, but it was clear that she was in condition that left her functionalities useless. Normally, the right thing to do here would be take her to the hospital, but instead they were going to discuss, and I probably had to remind them that the sound of course of action. Whatever the case, if ignored, only 7 people were participating in the feast. We would never know what the snake found out about Haru. Therefore, the only confirmed people were Kiyonosuke, a human, and a monkey. Personally, I thought I could trust Chimi, so I made 3. There was 4 left. This was bad. I wondered if Chimi understood that. I had to talk to her in private.
ねえ、お姉ちゃんは？
We kept Mako away. All that happened this morning, so she's still in the dark. She's not feeling too good. Leave her in peace.
ねえ、お外行っていい？
私見とくよ。すぐそこなら危なくもないでしょ。
The two left.
安永、ちょっと
What?
ちょっと取ってきてほしいものがね。
I'm going to use the bathroom. More and more people left. They probably didn't feel comfortable standing up until now. Tae-san just continued chanting, though. She lived in another world. Haru-chan, the way she constantly shifted in her seat made it clear she felt uncomfortable. Sorry about... I tried to talk to her.
ええ、知恵姉もずっと頼ってたし。
What about Reikoko?
私、あの人苦手よ。君、
Chimi? Seems fine
知
with
恵
her
姉は
though.
強いもん。
When did Umatsu-san arrive here?
2年か3年前。だいぶ前よ。
Or maybe Yatsumizu's people had been suffering at the hands of their village heads for generations, of course, couldn't just accept her. I heard she's one of the village heads, but what kind of family are the Umatsus
何が
anyways?
聞きたいのよ。よそ者はおとなしくしてろって言われるの何度目ですか？
Oh, sorry about that. That was insensitive of me. Let's talk about something else then.
別にいいけど。
I looked around as I saw Yasunaga-kun walk upstairs. I lowered my voice and asked, "What was mochi to you?"
なんで聞くの？
To make up for his lack of funeral.
え？
In funerals, you know, you talk about people who passed away, right? I remember hearing that gives their souls peace.
なんか 意外。
What is it?
もっと血も涙もない人だと思ってたから、供養とかそんなの言い出すって思わなかった。
That was just rude.
モッチーは野里の子だったけど、選ぶった感じじゃ全然なかった。すっごく変だったし、知恵姉と同じくらいいろんな問題を起こしてたけど、みんなはモッチーのこと頭おかしいって言ってたけど、とっても面白い人。多分テレビとかに出て大活躍するようなのが向いてたと思うわ。一つ上だったけど、ほとんど同い年の友達みたいに接してくれたし、楽しかったわよ、すごく。兄ちゃんもすごく仲良かったし。
He did?
うん、いつも一緒にいたし、学校でもヒーローみたいな二人組だったよ。時々横にいて寂しくなるくらい仲良かった。
Her visage dimmed. It felt like she was easier to understand than most. If Mochi had really liked her, it must have been a tough love. She hadn't even looked at him in that regard, and being with Yasunaga-kun even made him a target of her jealousy. But he's gone now.
うん。
Why not help him out? Yasunaga was going up the stairs again. I gestured at him with my chin. He's doing something for his mom, and Chimi-chan's outside. I don't think you can replace Mochi, or Chimi-chan's probably the best person for the job, but even if they were the only ones who will make the final decision, there's no reason to hold yourself back in the meantime, right? You want to help him, don't you?
うん。あなたも。
Well, Chimi gave me way more than just a meal and a place to stay. I won't say I don't have any alternative motives, but more than that, I just want to support. She seemed to be suffering at the hands of something that I can't even comprehend.
やっぱりあなたのこと誤解してたかも。
I can't blame you. Are you going?
うん。昨日のこと謝らなきゃだし。
Then I'll go outside too. We stood up at the same time. Though Haru-chan was always on edge, deep inside she was really an honest girl. I worried that she'd fall a victim to some scumbag like me down the road. What?
やっぱりあなたは逃げた方が。いや、なんでもない。
She cut herself short and hurried upstairs. Apparently, I gained some of her trust, but it didn't look like I could get anything more useful than a bit of advice. Unlike the others, she just believed that escape was possible. That's why she tried to do it yesterday, but that might have been the extent of it.
それで誰が怪しいと思う？
Haru-chan and Yasunaga. I walked up to Chimi, who was looking at her Meiko, and we
ハル
started
ち
a
ゃんはともか
conversation.
くイアスくんなの？
We have 4 suspects, Tei, Kaoru, and them. He was the only one of those who was outside when Mochi died. And considering how cunning the wolves are, I can't imagine it being anyone but him.
ずる賢いってこと？
Yeah.
そうなの？
Why did,
なぜって狼に殺されたから。
That's not what I'm asking.
一体何が。あ、もしかしてこういうこと？雲に守られなかったから。
Right, the spider is probably already dead.
え、
And yes, okay, so Tay was protected by the spider, and then yesterday no one actually said that the spider should protect someone else, right?
うん。
That means that the spider once again protected Takumi-san. He's way too valuable. At least that's what should have happened if the spider was still alive.
それはそうか。
since if he started, the ones who died before Takumi-san were Konzo, Mochi, the old man who cried wolf, and Yashitsugi. One of these four were the spider. The wolves realized this and killed him, and then went after Takumi-san. The only one logical explanation.
それは考えすぎじゃない？ 4人も死んだからそろそろ雲もいないだろうってことかも。
That's the optimistic take, but if we're actually dealing with someone clever, understanding them would be a fatal
で
flaw.
もどうやって雲を見抜けるって？
You're too loud. It's nothing, Mako. She just resumed, squabbling on the ground. She was completely absorbed in it for some reason. I think it's likely that the wolves guessed who was the spider.
どうや
You told me that on the first day, Konzo let Yasunaga-kun talk for most of the feast and only made the final decision, right? He looked like a more productive type to me. I doubt he agreed to not hang anyone on the first
まあ
day.
そう言われたらそうかも。
If he'd spoken up and took an initiative, he could have easily controlled the situation. Most of the decisions would have been good calls. That was why he was a good target for the wolves. That's what we thought, right?
そうだけど、同じ時にヤス君も狙われやすいって話したじゃん。
On the other hand, if you're a wolf, you have no choice of becoming a target for the wolves. It's more dangerous for them to not say anything important and look suspicious. Giving away harmless info for one is way better. The clever thing to do, don't you
でも
think?
肝臓じいちゃんがそんなに喋らなかったって話とどうつながるの？
Well, this is all just speculation. But I think he kept quiet to avoid calling attention to himself so the wolves wouldn't target him. Why would he do that? Because he felt that his survival was instinctively linked to the others. Because,
まさかカゴ持ちだったから？
yeah, and it was probably the spider.
どうしてそこまで言えるの？
The spider is the most valuable participant in the face, after all, and the one person they can't protect is themselves. But as long as his identity was hidden, he had the possibility of making the wolves waste the night. That was probably why he tried not to stand out, but it worked against him and attracted the wolves' attention. He, of all people, is quiet. He must be an amazing guardian, after all. That led the wolves taking him out on the first day, and then taking out the defenseless on the second.
憶測だってのは分かってるけど、なんとなくそうだって気もする。
If even that was planned by the enemies, it's best to assume that the abnormalities, too, have all been shortcuts for the
どういうこ
wolves.
と？
Too many people died outside the rules. Mochi, the old man, the guide, Rikako, she effectively is dead now. The wolves' unplanned deaths are a good thing. The least feast they have to survive, the lower the chances of them being hanged. That's what if they plan for those people
話
to
は
die.
分かるけど、どうやって？
They could tell Shitsugi-kun to walk around outside at night, basically setting him to the corruption. I don't know the motives behind Moji, but it all makes sense if they were all killed by Raikako. Teisan talked about it, Matsu's role, and thought she fell to the corruption because of it. If she killed the two, she had broken the feast's rules of one person per night and became a target of the corruption. I put aside the idea that there were apparently two types of corruption.
でもそんなの無理でしょ。彼女あんな服着てるんだよ。着替える暇なんてないじゃん。それに男二人相手に彼女が挑んで勝てるわけないってば。
Then how about this? Mochin or the wolf guy killed the others, and the one who survived was killed by her. She became the target of the corruption for drawing the blood of a second person in one day. I don't know about the clothes, but it could be solved by a large apron, something. We can't say it's impossible.
それは
Can we verify it?
でも一人だって相手は男で。
One of them was senile, though. Or maybe they were both weakened from trying to kill each other.
そんな、なんでそんなこと考えられるの？
Again, it's just a speculation. I don't even know the motive, but it does make sense.
じゃあそれがどうして狼の陰謀につながるっていうの？
I don't know the motive here either, but if they knew her weakness or something, they could have goaded her from killing them. Or maybe she was a wolf herself. Chimi was at loss for words. I had no choice but to continue myself. She could have hastened the whole process to give the other wolves an
それ
advantage.
はないよ。狼は数が減るほど不利じゃん。
True, considering the number of wolves and humans, losing one wolf to take out two humans isn't a good idea. But there was no guarantee that everyone would realize that. Not everyone acts logically. There's lots of illogical stuff going on. Predicting their effects is impossible.
聞きたくない。
But you can't give up, can you?
もう何も考えたくないよ。
Sorry, I said too much.
うん。こっちこそごめん。でもちょっときつい。
I really don't think you people need to keep playing along with this. I'll help you escape if you
無理
want.
だよ。分かってるんだ。ここに生まれたなら、ここで死ぬしかないんだよ。
That's just a baseless delusion.
神様が見えない人には分からないよ。
Yeah, I won't. How troubling. It really was troubling. If this was some tabletop fun for the whole family game, I'd had already punched the GM and left. But lives were actually on the line here. Not my own, but also that of someone that I kinda liked. We'd made it this far, and yet she was uncooperative. Maybe I was going about this the wrong. Maybe if I wanted to save her, I had started by saving her from the darkness within. Maybe the unidentified supernatural phenomenon that was binding her. Though that didn't seem like something that could have been done in 3 or 4 days. Still, I'd struggle until the very end. I couldn't participate in the feast myself, so I had no choice but to leave it to Jimmy. I didn't say anything more to her. I just chose to believe her. She overcame her inner conflict soon. Meanwhile, Meiko was strong and had grown so large it felt like she would get lost in the mist. Hey, I left Jamie and went to Meiko. She waved at me. Good thing she was kind of used to me now. What are you
こっ
drawing?
ちがね、お守り。
Guardians? One drawing showed me a warped circle with a line, just a strange going through it. But I could see what it was. It looked much like the crest I saw in the dining hall. There were 4 of them. Apparently the others had hard definitions, but the swirling drawing was the same as the ones on the stone. The symbols of the Yomotsu Okami. I see Shima ni Sama's guardians. Did Oni-chan teach them to you? What about these? They're not guardians, are they?
家畜。
They're cattle. I certainly wasn't expecting to hear her say such a vivid word from a girl about 4 years old. Animals, huh?
これがね、牛。
Hmm.
これはロバ。
Oh,
こっちはね、豚。
ah. The ground wasn't the best canvas, but the little girl wasn't the best artist. All I could really tell was that they had 4 legs. And this is... Well, whatever. What's this? It's bigger than the others.
狼。
A wolf. A light chill went down my spine. Why a wolf?
狼が来るから。
The wolf is coming. That was like...
狼が来るから。逃げて。逃げなきゃいけなくて。
Hold on. You know the
会
wolf?
ったことない。でも怖いって。
Is this the same wolf as we have
ね
here? Where's the snake and the
知
monkey?
らない。
What does the wolf do?
家畜を食べる。
Eat?
お馬は食べられたって。
Wait, so she doesn't consider herself a monkey. Does that mean that she isn't a monkey? That she's actually possibly a wolf? Because she didn't consider herself a monkey, which would be one of the guardians because the monkey knows the other monkey? Alright. I had no idea if this was from a picture book of her imagination, but there were barely any links between the stories, or maybe I rushed to conclusions. Who told you this story?
遠
When then?
く
Far away, huh?
ずーっと歩いてきたの。
Well, it didn't look like I could get any details from her. It went far away, referring her to the land of myth. It actually had results regarding Fujiyoshi's legend that weren't told here. What was I thinking? The land of the myth? How stupid. I should just calm down and file it under more info that made no sense to me. I see, it must
お
have been
腹
hard.
すいた。
Same here, let's go back. As we returned, I saw Chimi stand up in the mist again. Looks like the food's ready. Kiyonosuke was standing at the entrance dining hall and wearing a gloomy expression. And thus we are ending this today. Remember to like, hit that bell, comment, and subscribe.